Welcome to Concentrate on Cold Brew by Alliance Brew Gear, where we explore the world of low and slow coffee extraction, whip up some cold brews here and there, and ultimately help you jumpstart your cold brew game. I'm Nick Tracy, and this is Concentrate on Cold Brew. We hope you're having a great day in the cafe. In this week's episode, we'll address the fundamental question that this show will build off of. What exactly is cold brew? To define cold brew, we need to first address some common misconceptions and take a look at what cold brew isn't. Cold brew is not yesterday's hot brewed coffee, refrigerated and served chilled today, that's called iced coffee, or hot coffee brewed over ice, that's called a flash brew. Instead, cold brew is coffee that is brewed with unheated water for a much longer period of time than hot brewed coffee. It is both a specific brewing method and the final product of that brewing method. Its closest hot brew method is immersion brewing. Both methods involve adding all your water at once, waiting for a certain amount of time, and draining the vessel until the desired beverage is completely extracted from the grounds. In all methods of brewing coffee, the 5 primary variables considered are brewing temperature, contact time of the grounds and the water, grind size, turbidity, sometimes called agitation, and the ratio of coffee to water. Cold brew differs from hot brews in a number of ways when considering these variables. The most obvious difference is the temperature. Hot brews use hot water, cold brews use cold. There's no current standard for the temperature of water used to legally define it as cold brew. So the specialty coffee industry at large has dictated that it has to be room temperature or cooler. However, best practice dictates that refrigeration is better. Undesirable elements such as mold can develop if left at room temperature. Of course, this is only for periods of time longer than most actual brewing times last. If you stick the final brew in the fridge as soon as it's drained, you likely won't have any issues. Note that this isn't legal advice. If you're worried, brew in the fridge to be safe. With regards to time, hot brews have a grounds and water contact time of 3 to 6 minutes, while cold brews have a much longer contact time, typically ranging from 12 to 24 hours. Extraction of the flavor compounds takes longer in cooler water. From a chemistry perspective, this is because molecules of hot water have more kinetic energy, while cooler water has less kinetic energy. The traditional preparation of cold brew calls for the coarsest grind setting your grinder can produce. While we're no strangers to experimenting with this, coarse grinds are by far the best way to get started. It's the easiest way to produce consistently good cold brew, and definitely the grind size that most manufacturers had in mind when designing their cold brew filters. Of course, there will always be fines generated in your brews, but larger grind sizes produce less fines as a rule of thumb. In hot brews, turbidity is solely determined by the agitation your water flow produces, whether that be from a gooseneck kettle in a pour-over, although inventions like the mellow drip exist in part to change this, or a shower head in your coffee pot. Due to the longer steeping time of cold brew, the initial agitation of the cool water doesn't really factor into the final brew as heavily. However, once you initially drain the water from your grounds through whatever filter they're stored in, any fines that may have made it through the paper, polyester, or mesh filter you've used are churning in the bucket. To combat this, some manufacturers have included an outlet or finishing filter to further reduce the fines that make it into your final brew. However, one of the best ways to do this, whether you have an outlet filter or not, is to let the cold brew settle in the bucket before you drain it out of the spout and move the cold brew into your storage vessel. This allows those fines to settle into the bottom of your bucket and not end up in your final cup, giving your brew increased clarity and shelf life in terms of flavor stability. Lastly, the ratio of grounds to water in cold brew is hotly debated. Luckily, there's no set definition, so you can do whatever you want. Many companies have recommended recipes that are extremely concentrated and ideally cut with ice, water, or milk after the fact. We're more partial to upscaling the tried and true ratio by weight of 1 to 17 that is so popular with pour-overs, and then drinking our cold brew without adding anything else. We'll have whole future episodes dedicated to in-depth brewing recipes and ratios, so stay tuned for those. The current definition of cold brew also leaves some wiggle room for methods such as hot blooms, which we'll also explore in a future episode. But just assume that unless we say otherwise, anytime we mention cold brew in this show or on our website, we're talking room temperature or cooler blooms and brews, that are steeped for a period of 12 to 24 hours and use a coarse grind setting. Hopefully this has given you a clearer idea of what cold brew is if you weren't sure, and we hope you still enjoyed it even if you're an experienced cold brewer. We'll explore increasingly complex elements of cold brew as the show progresses, so stay tuned no matter what your experience level is. Thanks for watching today's pilot episode of Concentrate on Cold Brew about defining cold brew itself. Regardless of your experience level with it, what is your opinion on cold brew? We'd love to know in the comments section below. We'll be back next week to talk about the economic principles of cold brew and why it makes financial sense to brew it, whether you're a cafe or an at-home coffee brewer. Hey everyone, Nick here with some announcements and updates. I am filming this from my kitchen. I'm currently editing episodes of Concentrate on Cold Brew from home due to COVID-19 precautions, and filming what I can from home as needed. Some of the show's content was filmed months ago, so we've put this section in to allow for more timely discussion of current events. Luckily, I only live a few blocks from the office, so I can head over to film whatever needs to be filmed there currently. The specialty coffee community and the service industry as a whole is taking quite the hit as a result of this pandemic, and our hearts go out to everyone affected. We're exploring options to help affected roasters and cafes, but in the meantime, staying connected is more important than ever. For that reason, we have set up a Facebook group called the Cold Brew Alliance. It will help keep this from being a one-sided conversation where we just talk at you for a few minutes here and there. We'll use it to facilitate weekly discussion, build a community, and get you guys involved in future content. So head to the link in the description and let's talk cold brew. Most importantly, stay healthy and safe out there. If you enjoyed today's episode of Concentrate on Cold Brew, please consider liking this video and sharing it with your friends. It really helps the channel out. If you want to connect with us, various coffee roasters, cafes, and other cold brewers, the link to the Cold Brew Alliance page is in the description. Click or tap the Alliance logo to check out the rest of the Alliance Brew Gear channel. Catch up on the rest of the Concentrate on Cold Brew videos over here, or watch the previous episode right here. Again, thanks for tuning in to Concentrate on Cold Brew, and stay caffeinated out there, my friends.